Ever been so tired after a long day that you accidentally got yourself fired from a job you don't even have? No, well, pull up a chair because I've got a story for you. It was one of those nights, you know the kind. The clock on my computer screen blinked 1:30 a.m., my eyes felt like sandpaper, and my stomach was staging a full-on rebellion. The only solution was a sacred pilgrimage to the one place that's always there for you in the dead of night, Walmart. As I shuffled through the automatic doors, the place was eerily quiet, save for the low hum of the floor polishers. I noticed the night crew stocking shelves. They weren't in the usual blue vests. Instead, it was a motley crew in jeans and various hoodies, looking more like a high school hangout than a workforce. I glanced down at my own faded blue hoodie and thought nothing of it. My only mission was to navigate the path to the promised land, the pasta aisle. That's when I met him. Let's call him Manager Kyle. He couldn't have been more than 20, but he walked with the self-important swagger of a man who owned the entire corporation. He had a clipboard clutched to his chest like a holy scripture and a walkie-talkie clipped to his belt that crackled with static. I was contemplating the deep existential question of spaghetti versus linguine when I heard a sharp, aggressive ahem. I looked up. Manager Kyle was staring me down, his expression a perfect mix of disappointment and fury. "You're supposed to be in aisle 7, facing the canned soup," he snapped. I blinked, genuinely confused. "Sorry, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just here for some prego." He took a step closer, his eyes narrowing as he pointed a trembling finger at my chest. "Don't play dumb with me. I see the hoodie, your night crew, and you've been wandering around for 10 minutes doing nothing. You think I don't see you slacking?" A slow grin spread across my face. It was too late, I was too tired, and this was just too absurd. I decided to play along just a little. Oh man, am I in trouble? That was all the confirmation he needed. His chest puffed out like a bantam rooster. "Trouble," he boomed, his voice echoing in the empty aisle. "You're fired. We have a zero-tolerance policy for laziness on my shift." I just stared at him for a second, then I started to chuckle. This kid was on a power trip of epic proportions. My laughter, however, only seemed to fuel his rage. "You think this is a joke?" he yelled, his face starting to turn a blotchy red. "You're done, finished." Okay, you got me," I said, holding up my hands in mock surrender. "You're firing me, fair enough. Just one question. What's my name for the termination paperwork?" He froze. It was like his entire brain short-circuited. You could see the gears grinding to a halt behind his eyes. He had been so focused on the glorious act of firing someone that he'd completely skipped over the part where he needed to know who he was firing. Your name," he stammered. "Just tell me your name." I leaned in conspiratorially. "Wait a minute," I whispered. "You mean to tell me you're about to fire your worst, laziest employee and you don't even know his name? How does that work exactly? Don't you think the real manager might have some questions?" Manager Kyle turned the color of a ripe tomato. He opened his mouth, then closed it, sputtering like a car engine failing to start. Finally, he just spun on his heel and stormed off, muttering, "I'm getting the store manager. You'll see." I just shook my head, grabbed my jar of spaghetti sauce, and gave it a little triumphant shake in his direction as he disappeared around the corner. I was at the self-checkout a few minutes later when I heard the commotion. There was Kyle, frantically pointing at me while talking to a tired-looking woman with Brenda on her name tag, who was clearly the actual manager. I could hear Brenda's exasperated voice from across the registers. "Kyle, for the last time, he's a customer. He is holding a jar of prego and a box of noodles. He does not work here." "But the hoodie," Kyle protested feebly. "And you are not a manager," Brenda continued, her voice dangerously calm. "You do not have the authority to fire anyone. Actually," she said, pausing for dramatic effect, "you know what? Hand me your vest. You're done for the night and for the foreseeable future." My jaw dropped. I watched as the now ex-manager Kyle dejectedly handed over his vest and did the walk of shame towards the exit. As I scanned my pasta sauce, I made eye contact with Brenda. She just sighed, gave me a weary nod of solidarity, and went back to her work. So yeah, that's the story of how my late-night craving for spaghetti got a power-tripping Walmart employee fired. I guess you could say I clocked in, caused some management restructuring, and clocked out without ever being on the payroll. TLDR, wore a hoodie to Walmart. A wannabe manager thought I was a slacking employee, tried to fire me, and ended up getting himself fired when I asked him to put my name on the imaginary termination paperwork.
Before we get into the last story, and trust me, it's the wildest one yet, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss the next one.
You guys, I still can't quite believe the sheer audacity I witnessed today, all because of a humble can of lobster pâté. Seriously, some people just weren't raised right, and I've got a story that proves it. So my buddy Mark hits me up this afternoon, asking for a hand with his famous seafood chowder. I love a good chowder, and I was happy to help. We're getting everything prepped, all the fresh seafood, the veggies, the cream, you know the works. Then I glance at the recipe and my heart sinks a little. Mark, I say, we're missing the secret weapon here, lobster pâté. It's that one ingredient that just elevates it from good to holy cow. What is this magic? No biggie, I think. I'll just zip over to the grocery store down the street from his place and grab some. Easy peasy, right? Wrong. I get to the store, head straight for the fancy tinned goods, and guess what? Zilch, nada. Not a single can of the good stuff. I even asked an employee and he just shrugged. Sorry, we've been out all week. Plan B then. I tell Mark I'll be back and I hightail it over to my house because I'm usually pretty well stocked. And lo and behold, in the back of my pantry, like a glimmering beacon of seafood why hope, I found 2 glorious cans. Jackpot. Feeling pretty smug about my foresight, I decided to grab a few other bits I needed while I was out. I tossed the 2 precious cans of lobster pâté into my cart, right there in the child's seat section, visible and secure. I was humming a little tune, heading back towards the frozen aisle for some peas, when I suddenly stopped dead in my tracks. I watched, in slow motion it felt, as a woman, probably in her late 40s, early 50s, with a permanent scowl already etched on her face, reached into my cart. My actual shopping cart. And she snatched one of my cans of lobster pâté, just brazenly took it. My jaw literally dropped. Hey, I blurted out, probably a little louder than I intended. Excuse me, that's my lobster pâté. She turned to me, clutching the can like it was a winning lottery ticket. Her eyes narrowed. No, it's not, she snapped, as if I was the one who just committed grand larceny. I saw it first. You saw it in my cart, I corrected, trying to keep my voice even. I pointed. It was literally sitting right there. I just put it in. Well, I need it, she declared, puffing out her chest. And you have too. I'm only taking one. What's the big deal? Oh, it was a big deal. The big deal is you just reached into my personal property and took something. I was starting to get really annoyed now. Put it back, please. I actually need both of these for a specific recipe. Her face went from scowl to full-blown entitled rage in about 2 seconds flat. How dare you accuse me of stealing? I was just getting what I needed. You're clearly trying to hoard them. Her voice was getting louder now, echoing slightly in the aisle. You're invading my personal space by standing so close and making these accusations. I actually took a step back, dumbfounded by the sheer mental gymnastics. I'm invading your personal space? You just took something out of my cart. She then started waving the can around like a weapon. I'm calling the police. This is assault. You're harassing me. At this point, a man in a store polo shirt, who I later learned was a manager named Henry, came rushing over, looking stressed. Is everything all right here, ladies? No, it is not, the woman shrieked, pointing at me. This man is a thief. He's trying to steal my lobster pâté, and he assaulted me when I tried to take it. Henry looked at her, then at me, then at the can she was still clutching, then at the other can still in my cart. He seemed to be piecing it together. Ma'am, can you explain what happened? I was just minding my own business, getting groceries, she started, weaving a completely fantastical tale. And this man just came up and started yelling at me, demanding I give him my pâté. I cut in, Henry, with all due respect, that's not what happened. She literally just reached into my cart and took this can. I found these at my house because the other store was out, and I need both for a seafood chowder. I held up my second can as proof. Henry looked at the woman. Ma'am, you reached into his cart. She scoffed. It was just sitting there. It wasn't in his cart if he hadn't checked out yet. It's fair game. I swear my brain nearly short-circuited. That's not how shopping works. Henry, bless his weary soul, just sighed. Ma'am, property in a customer's cart is considered their property until purchased. You need to return it to the gentleman. Absolutely not, she yelled, her face turning an alarming shade of red. He's bullying me. I'm a paying customer. I deserve this pâté more than he does. He already has one. The argument went on for what felt like an eternity. She was just absolutely committed to this narrative that I was the villain, and she was the victim of a pâté-hoarding bully. Henry tried to reason with her, then he tried to explain store policy, then he finally just gave up trying to be polite. He firmly told her that if she didn't return the item and cease causing a disturbance, she would be asked to leave. She screamed something about corporate, about her lawyer, about how this store would regret this day. But Henry was done. He calmly but firmly escorted her, still muttering threats and insults out of the store. I watched her go, clutching my 2 cans of pâté like they were solid gold, just shaking my head in disbelief. I paid for my groceries, still a little rattled but mostly just amazed. Some people, man, they just live in their own little world where basic civility and property rights don't apply if it means they don't get exactly what they want. Anyway, I got back to Mark's. We made that chowder, and let me tell you, those 2 cans of lobster pâté made it the best damn chowder we've ever had. And worth every single ounce of entitlement I had to deal with. Almost.
You ever have one of those days where you're just minding your own business, doing a good deed, and then suddenly you're the prime suspect in a made-up robbery, all thanks to a particularly unhinged stranger? Yeah, me neither, until last week. Grab a snack, 'cause this one's wild. So I'm Jensen, and my usual gig is working at the local trampoline park. It's pretty chill, mostly wrangling hyped-up kids, and my uniform is this bright blue polo with staff emblazoned across the back. It's relevant, trust me. Last week my dad came to pick me up after my shift. He's a big gardener, and we needed to make a quick run to Home Depot for a few bags of soil. Since I was already out and about, I figured, why not? We pulled into the Home Depot lot, and Dad headed inside while I started looking for a cart for the soil. That's when I spotted an older gentleman, probably in his late 70s, struggling to load 2 bags of potting mix into his sedan. He looked a bit bewildered, kinda huffing and puffing. Without even thinking, I jogged over. "Need a hand with those, sir," I offered, already reaching for a bag. He looked up startled, then smiled, relieved. "Oh, bless you, son, my back ain't what it used to be." We quickly got his bags into his trunk. As I straightened up, he fumbled in his wallet and pulled out a crisp $5 bill. "Here, kid. You earned it, thanks so much." I was a little taken aback, not expecting anything, but I appreciated the gesture. "No problem at all, sir, just glad I could help." I pocketed the 5 and headed back towards our truck. As I was walking, I noticed a woman in a beat-up, dark sedan a few aisles over. She was just sitting there, not doing anything, but her eyes were locked on me. They narrowed a bit as I put the 5 in my pocket, and she gave me this look, like she'd just seen me commit a felony. I figured she was just having a bad day and decided to ignore it. What's a guy gonna do, right? My dad came out with a cart full of soil, and we got our bags loaded up. I hopped into the passenger seat, buckling up as he started the engine. We pulled out of the parking lot, and that's when I saw her again. The sedan right behind us. I figured it was a coincidence, just heading the same way, until we hit the first stop sign. She pulled right up next to us, window already down. Her face was flushed and her eyes were practically bulging. "Hey," she barked, her voice shrill. "You, young man." I looked over, genuinely confused. My dad glanced at her, then back at the road. "Yes," I asked, rolling my window down a crack. "Do you need to check your receipt?" she demanded, pointing a finger at me. I blinked. No, I don't work here, ma'am. We just bought some soil." Her face got even redder. "Don't lie to me. I saw you. Why does your shirt say staff then? Are you scamming people, taking advantage of the elderly?" She was practically yelling now, drawing stares from other cars at the intersection. My stomach dropped. This was quickly turning into something ridiculous. "Ma'am, I work at the trampoline park, not Home Depot," I explained, trying to keep my voice calm despite the adrenaline starting to pump. "This is my uniform." I was just helping an old man load his bags into his car, and he gave me $5 as a thank you. She wasn't hearing it. Her voice ratcheted up another notch, the veins in her neck visible. "That's what they all say. You think I'm stupid. I saw you take that money. You robbed that poor old man, didn't you? You're a thief. I'm calling the police." By this point, my dad had finally registered the full scope of the commotion. He was still in the driver's seat, jaw slack, but before he could even respond, the light turned green. Karen, still screaming, stayed put, blocking traffic. Horns started blaring behind us. Just then, from the passenger seat of her car, a mortified-looking man in his 50s, presumably her husband, leaned over and practically threw himself out of the car. He scrambled towards our window, his face a mask of utter shame. "I am so sorry, kid," he gasped, practically bowing. "She gets like this. Please just ignore her. She thinks everyone's out to get her." He fumbled in his own wallet, pulled out a crisp $50 bill, and shoved it through my cracked window. "Here, for your trouble, please just go." My dad, who had been about to step out, just froze, utterly stunned. Karen was still yelling, but now her tirade was directed at her husband. "What are you doing? He's a crook. You're rewarding him." Her husband just ignored her, his eyes pleading with us. "Please, just go. Have a good day." My dad, finally snapping out of it, just nodded slowly. He put the car in drive, and we slowly pulled away, leaving Karen's husband practically wrestling her back into their car, her shrieks echoing down the street. We drove in silence for about 30 seconds, then my dad and I just looked at each other and burst out laughing. It was pure, incredulous laughter, the kind that hurts your ribs. We couldn't believe what had just happened. This woman, this absolute Karen, had seen me perform a simple act of kindness, twisted it into a grand theft, and then her husband had to pay me $50 to make her shut up. As we drove home, still chuckling every now and then, I couldn't help but reflect. It's wild how quickly someone can twist a simple act of kindness into some grand conspiracy, all because they're looking for trouble. At least her husband was a decent guy. And hey, I helped an old man and ended up with $55. Not a bad haul for a quick trip to Home Depot. Anyway, that's my crazy story. Thanks for reading, guys.
Still in the mood for more? Watch this video next.